Welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. As always, promised, we bring the very best. We bring the people you want to talk to. And Brian Devaney, how are you doing today, sir, out there in the world? How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Okay, so you are a manufacturer rep at Sales Solutions, Inc., but really what got my attention was all of your credentials, sir. You have quite a few credentials to be able to list up, Brian, right?
Yeah, I sure do. And part of what I do for a living is helping advise people on what they need to do to be safe. And what helps me do that better is to get some of the same credentials that folks are getting out in the world that are actually working in work zones, so I can better understand and kind of walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, it's great, and I understand. I just want to list a few of these that I've got written down here. You are certified in CPSC, OSHA 30, work zone, traffic control, fall protection competent person. Oh, list goes on and on and on, understanding what's going on out there in both construction and work zones out there in the world, and understanding how to be safe, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So all of those credentials really boil down to helping folks be safe out on the job, and that's what we do. And just this coming Friday, I'll complete my traffic incident management train the trainer credential, which will help with emergency responders and how to approach keeping those folks safe when they are operating on an emergency scene out on the roadway.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Tell us about the importance of that and what that is.
Well, it's critically important because emergency scenes are a lot different than a work zone, in the sense that they occur fast. There isn't a extended period of time to set up a lane closure and things of that nature. So you wind up having to use your vehicles, various other temporary products to block off the incident area. So it's all in the vein of keeping people safe. And unfortunately, here in the United States, those emergency struck by incidents occur far too often. As a matter of fact, this year alone, 22 people have been struck by out on the roadway. And that's tow truck operators, maintenance professionals. Here in Pennsylvania, 2 of our state troopers and a citizen were killed out on a highway. They were struck and killed by a drunk driver very recently.
Wow, and we talk about first responder scenes here as well, and how important, when you're driving down the road, you see those disco lights to slow down and understand the dangers. I'll tell you, and you find that a lot of these instances, as whether they be first responder scenes or also construction or work zones, a lot of distraction is causing some of these incidences to occur.
There's a ton of distraction, absolutely. One of the things that we're up against in this world is we have a lot of things in our lives that are pulling us in a lot of different directions. And if you're like me, in my world, we're tethered to our phones, and there's a lot of distraction on that phone. It's not just phone calls and text messages. It's Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all of those other things that keep people from keeping their eyes on the road. And those distractions are just continue to become a greater and a greater problem. And then there's distractions that are not necessarily technology driven. It's other people in the vehicle with you. Children. I have a child, and it can happen. They're talking to you. They need your attention. So there's a lot of things going on in a vehicle, and it seems to be getting more and more worse than better.
Let's talk about work zones.
Sure.
You're probably one of the better experts of understanding what's going on in a work zone. What is going on? And I know there are people working, but what are some of the dangers in the work zone as that relates to driving, as that relates to driving up on them?
Sure.
And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, there's a ton of moving parts in a work zone, and it's not just the folks on the other side of a barricade that are doing their job. There are areas in a work zone that are specifically set aside for vehicles entering and exiting the work zone. So one of the reasons that we ask drivers to slow down in a work zone is because we have to be cognizant of the fact that there are vehicles that are attempting to enter and exit the roadway through that work zone. So that becomes a big problem. The other distractions that occur out there are live loads. being lifted and set into place, right? It can, you have a hazard of something coming loose and falling onto the roadway and creating a greater hazard. So there's a lot of moving parts that you find out on the roadway that we have to be kind of, as a motorist and as the traveling public, we need to be aware of. You mentioned earlier in your segment, these folks that are working in the work zone, that's their office, right? That's where they go every single day. We tend to get this false sense of security being in our vehicles, that nothing can go wrong, and things can go wrong quickly. And as we know, distracted driving accounts for roughly 9 fatalities a day in the United States. So it's a big problem for sure.
And as we continue to talk about work zone, I will tell you that personally experienced, I saw a vehicle, a barrel roll into the roadway, and a vehicle was going pretty quick rate and hit that barrel. And that barrel flew, I would say, 100 feet at a high rate of speed. And thank goodness nobody was around, but that in and of itself is something that happened like that. And that barrel, it was a huge bullet shooting around into a work zone, which could have caused a major danger. What are some of the numbers that are associated? Are we seeing an increase in the number of fatalities and injuries? Are we seeing a decrease in a trend-like manner?
So we're actually seeing an increase. One of the unfortunate statistics that OSHA supplies us with every single year is what we call the fatal 4. And among those are struck by. Continues to be one of the number one causes of death for folks working out on the roadway every single day is struck by incidents. And then you go back to the motorist, right? Accidents in work zones, they continue to become a growing problem in this country. And I think what happens with that is that, all that orange stuff that you see out on the roadway, the barrels, the cones, what have you, the signs, they become noise. And we're so used to seeing them that we don't even focus on them anymore. And so what we're trying to do as an industry is, it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's differentiate a human from a barrel. And so that's one of our biggest challenges for sure.
And as we talk about this, and we're going to see with the infrastructure bill that was just passed, we're going to see a lot more construction and a lot more people out there working on the highways and byways. And it's going to be a genuine challenge for you guys.
It is. And one of the things that it all comes back to is awareness, right? We're just off the heels of the Work Zone Awareness Week just a couple weeks ago. And it's raising the awareness level of the traveling public that more than ever, there's going to be people working out on the roadway. We see it. There's work zones all over the place, and it's just going to keep growing and growing. So we need to raise that level of awareness, and we need to ask people, if you're not going to do it for yourselves, these folks that are working out on the roadway have people that depend on them. A lot of these folks that are unfortunately passing away are in the prime income earning years of their lives. These are folks that have people that depend on them. And when there's an incident and they are severely injured, permanently disabled, it directly affects people's livelihoods. And so your actions and your decision to not drive safe or to speed through a work zone have a ripple effect far beyond what may affect you, if those things are to happen. So, I always ask people, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for other people, because the consequences are real and they can't be reversed.
Hey, question for you on that. If I'm working in a work zone and I'm a construction worker, I look like this. Am I doing enough, or is there more that I've also got to participate? Do I need to have gloves on, helmets on? Is there something I can do as a construction worker to make sure that I am doing more than the minimum required?
You absolutely can. And something that we've learned here in this country, and really in the last decade, is the false sense of security that a hard hat delivers. When we look at the ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, accepted forms of head protection, they have really type 1 and type 2. Both of those standards are for dropped objects. They do absolutely nothing to protect a worker who's been struck by, who slips, trips, and falls. One of the things that we've learned is from 2003 to 2010, on the job, 2,200 people have died due to traumatic brain injury. There's one of the manufacturers I work with is a world leader in head protection. There's a standard that we follow over in Europe that really focuses on multiple impacts, multiple directions, reducing what we call orbital rotation. When you orbital rotation is brain movement. And brain movement can occur if you just bump your head all the way up to a full-on traumatic brain injury, right? And so we want to reduce that brain movement. So when you have safety helmets that folks are wearing out on the roadway, they can point to and do point to the reduction in fatalities and injuries because we're protecting people's brains. And the brain is one of the most delicate organs out there. I can tell you in my personal experience, in less than 2 years, I can point to 5 people that are alive today because they were wearing helmets on the roadway. The Virginia Department of Transportation has adopted helmets for their entire workforce working out on the roadway. And it's something that we're seeing more and more. And that's, in my opinion, one of the biggest things that we can do for protecting our workforce is delivering that level of PPE to those folks.
And as we talk about it, and just so that we can understand, what is the genuine difference between a hard hat and a helmet? Because I have a hard hat in my office, and I do understand it sets on top of high on top of your head, and it is for falling objects. But what genuinely, what distinguishes these two protective devices?
Sure. Yeah. So as you pointed out, hard hats are really designed to protect people from things coming and hitting them on the very top of their head. It doesn't protect from side, rear, front impact in the way that a helmet that follows this European standard, which is EN 12492. So that's one of the big things. And I mean, I'm sure you've done it. If you try it out today, you put your hard hat on and you bend over to pick something up, that's going right to the ground. A helmet is designed to stay on your head. And that's the big piece. It's not just a chin strap. It's the retention system, and it's the internal components. If you look at a properly designed helmet and you turn it up inside out, it's going to look just like a motorcycle helmet. It's got that same level of foam. And nowhere in the world do we seek to protect people's brains as poorly as we do in the trades. Something I tell folks all the time is I have a 6-year-old girl. She wants to go ride on her bicycle. If I put a hard hat on her head, all the well-intentioned folks in the world are going to put me up on YouTube and TikTok, and I'm going to be in trouble for being a bad dad because nobody would ever consider a hard hat anywhere other than construction to be an acceptable form of head protection.
Wow, and let me tell you, I had to look this up. You're a fall protection competent person.
Yes.
That to me speaks scary volumes about being up high on iron and steel and girders and in construction areas. What exactly is it? It says here you have a new fall protection standard coming out as a safety guideline. What is that?
Sure. So to address competent person and to address falls, so that competent person training allows me to better advise organizations on their safety programs when working at height. But the interesting thing is we think of falls as that person that's up on a steel structure, 60 stories in the air. But the interesting thing is 3 out of every 5 people that fall to their death are 20 feet or lower. It's not these high levels that we think of. So that's the big thing about falls is they happen at relatively low levels. Now, this new ANSI standard is really meant to harmonize the connecting devices, what we call self-retracting lifelines. These connecting devices are connected to your harness and they're connected to an anchor point, and they're meant to arrest the fall as quickly as possible. So there's really right now today, there's 3 different types of devices you can use. We're boiling that down into 2 devices. It's going to be something where you have an anchor point that's above your head, and then something that you could use when an anchor point is below or at your foot level. One of the things that when I think about the trucking community and I think about people working around big trucks is climbing up on those vehicles, getting equipment off of them, offloading flatbeds and things like that poses a real risk and a real fall protection hazard. So something to be aware of when you're working around loads that you're trying to get onto a construction site is that the risk is real, and there are a lot of solutions out there to protect you while you're working on top of a flatbed or top of a tanker truck.
What are some of the, and I'm just going to ask, we have about 3 more minutes, but what are some of the products that you emphasize in your training and that you feature in your training besides the hard hat? Are there others? Great. And I know you got the harness for falling. What are some of those? Are some exciting new stuff. What are some other stuff that you emphasize in your training?
Sure. So one of the things that we focus on, and when we're putting trainings together, we're trying to figure out the best possible way to differentiate, like I said earlier, the worker from a barrel or a traffic cone. So some of those things are innovations in lighting. You'll see out on the roadway balloon type lighting that is reduces glare, right? Which is great because then the worker can see what's going on. But it also helps the motorist because they aren't being blinded by the light that's shining, in the work zone. There's also personal lighting and things of that nature. Innovations in high visibility that would just blow you away. That what we're trying to do is really just make those workers pop in the work zone. So those are the things. Additional signage, additional personnel. Those are all types of things that we focus on and we talk to people about to give the traveling public the most warning possible that they're about to approach a work zone or even an emergency zone, so we can keep the motorists safe and we can keep the people working out on the roadway safe.
And you know what, Brian? It's great to know that there's people like you out there helping to educate. And I think fundamentally that's where we need to start, and that's where we need to get to educate and to continue to bring out the word of slowing down, being careful in these safe zones. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I couldn't have said it better myself.
All righty. And hey, Brian, I appreciate you coming on today. And before we get out of here, we always ask our guests to state their name and say where they work for, and that this is BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that for me?
Absolutely. My name is Brian Devaney. I work for Sales Solutions Incorporated, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
All right. Thank you very much. Hey, Brian, we appreciate you coming on and being here today.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Be safe.